There have been a lot of polls in the past several months showing that people typically want a Green New Deal. A recent poll from The Nation shows that when asked, a lot of young people, predominantly millennials, say they're totally interested. And admittedly, when I first heard about it, I was kind of interested too. The idea that we could invest in new technologies and do more to make a better world, to reduce carbon emissions, it all sounds pretty good. But Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal actually sounds a lot more like socialism. And look, it's fine if you want to be a socialist in my opinion, but why are we mixing environmentalism with socialism? They're very different things. Now, most Democrats for the 2020 race, I believe all of them, have signed on. But it really seems like the Green New Deal is a pie-in-the-sky plan that doesn't make sense. But again, more importantly, it sounds like they're just trying to shoehorn in intersectionality and feminism by using environmentalism. Today, let's take a look at some of the polling data, how it's actually misleading, and then I want to talk about how the Green New Deal is less about the environment and more about socialist policy. I'll just briefly touch on this Vice News article to give you the general idea of the support. From Vice News, they say, Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal has the backing of every major 2020 candidate. Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, and Kirsten Gillibrand, all of whom have announced they're running for president, co-sponsored the Senate resolution, introduced by Democratic Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts. And very quickly, let's jump over to GQ for a very important distinction. This is a non-binding resolution. GQ says, in Congress, a simple resolution, the form this one takes, is a non-binding expression of the sentiments of a given chamber. Unlike a bill, it does not have the force of law. Ultimately, what that means is it's just kind of their vision for how things should go. And I think that's fine if you want to unveil your potential vision. But what we've seen with Pew Research showing that Democrats want more moderate policy, to see so many major 2020 Democrats back this bill, well, it seems to me like the Democratic Party is moving too far left for the average person. But more importantly, whenever this story is framed, they're always talking about climate change, but it would seem that the bill is going to have a bigger impact on social policy, not environmental policy. And this is especially important when you realize how it's being framed by the media, and particularly left-wing media, from The Nation. Young people really want a Green New Deal. New polling data shows that millennials are more enthusiastic than older generations about radical efforts to save the planet and create jobs. But the question asked was whether or not voters would support giving every unemployed American who wants one a job building energy-efficient infrastructure. 60% of respondents said they somewhat or strongly support the policy, compared to just 13% who somewhat or strongly oppose the policy. From that simple question, it sounds kind of okay. If the government set up a program that was going to invest in new infrastructure and technology, yeah, a lot of people would support that. However, when they reframe the question, would you support or oppose a Green New Deal to end fossil fuel use in the United States and have the government create clean energy jobs? The plan would be paid for by raising taxes, including a tax on carbon emissions. When the question is asked this way, people who oppose it go up a substantial amount. And unsurprisingly, millennials still support this. But again, millennials are less likely to be supporting families, and it seems natural that they would lean left on the issue. These trends are seen over many different polls. And that's kind of the saying. When you're young, you're liberal, and when you're older, you're conservative. There's an idiom there, but I'll avoid that for now. But let's talk about how this is being framed in the media, because it would seem like many people are kind of being dishonest about what's actually happening here. This tweet from Andrew Lawrence is going viral. He said, "Watch what happens when Tucker Carlson steps out of the conservative bubble and brings on an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez policy advisor who debunks all the conservative media lies straight to his face. Spoiler, it doesn't go great for Tucker." However, in this video, Tucker brings up the phrase unwilling to work. This man says that's fake, it's a lie, but in actuality, I'm going to go ahead and assume he's just incorrect and is completely unaware with what Cortez has actually proposed. In response to this viral tweet misrepresenting what's going on, John Levine of The Wrap said, "It appears this AOC policy advisor is lying." In fact, the other day I went on the Joe Rogan show and I brought up the phrase unwilling to work. And I noticed there were many comments and messages sent to me where they said I was lying about the Green New Deal. Well, I could be wrong about the Green New Deal, but my intention is not to lie. My intention is never to lie, but yes, I'm wrong sometimes. That's normal. There's a difference between intentionally misleading people and just being wrong. But the point here is, I'm not wrong either. At least if you want to trust NPR. NPR published this, which they call the Green New Deal Frequently Asked Questions. In it, we can see economic security for all who are unable or unwilling to work. But there's a reason why I say this bill is much more about intersectional socialism than it is about the environment. when you actually look at the archived version of Cortez's own website. Sure, it's entirely possible that this archived version is fake, but it's being shared by many verified and established journalists, so I think we can only operate on the assumption this is likely the real thing. I do remember seeing this, but because it's deleted, it's hard to know for sure. But look, this is what her site says. Green New Deal FAQ, what is the Green New Deal? But the important part is right here. Any large-scale transformation of society can create the risk of some people slipping through the cracks. That's why the Green New Deal also calls for an upgrade to the basic economic securities enjoyed by all people in the U.S. to ensure everybody benefits from the newly created wealth. It guarantees everyone a job with family-sustaining wages, family and medical leave, vacations, and retirement security, high-quality education, including higher education and trade schools, high-quality healthcare, clean air and water, healthy food, safe, affordable, adequate housing, and economic environment-free monopolies, economic security to all who are unable or unwilling to work. This is particularly extremist. To provide everyone with a house, everyone with food, everyone with healthcare, everyone with education, everyone with a job. I can only say this sounds like complete and overt communism, not even necessarily socialism. And there's a reason why I pulled up an archive. This was removed from their website. And admittedly, a lot of this language is not in the actual non-binding resolution, which again, I want to stress, it's non-binding, which means it's their pie-in-the-sky endeavor. But it does mean that Ocasio-Cortez, her policy advisors who are wrong or lying, and the people who support her are putting forward a plan where they basically say they want some kind of communist system in this country. And I'm reticent to say communist because that's one of the most extreme words you can use to describe it. But listen, if you're talking about guaranteeing housing, work, healthcare, food, jobs, even if the person is unwilling to work, we're not talking about socialism, which can be, heavy taxation to a certain extent. We're talking about straight up the government building houses for people, telling them, guaranteeing them a job. But more importantly, I don't understand how a system could function if you're going to guarantee all of these things to an individual who is unwilling to work. Now, again, this was removed from their website, so maybe somebody wrote something and it wasn't checked, or they realized it was wrong, or maybe they're just concerned that people, they put forth too much of what they actually want to do when they shouldn't have. But beyond the FAQ, which was removed, you can look at the bill where it actually talks about racial inequity from climate change and gender pay gaps. On page 2 of the resolution, they talk heavily about climate change and the environment. And that's to be expected. The bill is supposed to address these things. They say they want net zero emissions by 2050. And that's okay, I can understand that. If you want to put forth an environmental bill and you want to dream big, I'm listening. But on the next page, which is page 3, it then moves into the more socialist policy of guaranteeing basic needs, clean air, clean water, healthy food, adequate healthcare, housing, transportation, education. They talk about hourly wages stagnating, the erosion of earnings. They talk about racial wealth divides and gender earnings gaps. None of these things have anything to do with the environment. So why is it included? Now, the interesting thing about the conversation I had with Joe Rogan dealing with Twitter censorship, left-right bias, is that when we talk about these political issues, it's not really left versus right. Nancy Pelosi called it the green dream and was critical of the idea. There are many center-left individuals, myself included, who are extremely critical of the idea. I'm absolutely interested in a Green New Deal. I'm not interested in your strange intersectional race-based policy or trying to get the government to build houses, hospitals, give food and clean water. Listen, I don't want people to suffer. I don't want people to die. If I can do what I can to make sure someone's got a place to sleep and someone's got food, of course I want to do it. And of course I believe in social programs to help those who are in desperate need. I believe unemployment is great. I believe food benefits are good things, Social Security. I like these things. But how do you guarantee all of these things to everyone in a sweeping transformation of the economy, even if they're unwilling to work? Now, removing the unwilling to work portion, we still have them calling for providing all of these services to basically everyone, which it's probably too expensive to do. And even if it was implemented, would require massive, massive taxation or a complete socialist system. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweeted, "When your Green New Deal legislation is so strong that the GOP has to resort to circulating false versions, but the real one nets 70 House co-sponsors on day one, and all Dem presidential candidates sign on anyway." First of all Democratic presidential candidates, my understanding, have not signed on, at least according to Vice. This was actually the major candidates, but I could be wrong. However, what they're referencing is a tweet from Mark Dice and Jack Posobiec. These tweets are intended to be, my understanding is that they're jokes. Christina Lopez G tweeted, "Look at these morons trying to guerrilla channel AOC's Green New Deal." And Mark Dice and Jack Posobiec tweeted fake versions that are meant to be silly. Jack Posobiec responded with, "My point and you," going over their head. They were trying to, for one, be funny, it's satirical, but they were trying to see if the media would fact-check these fake plans. However, many people are now circulating this believing it's real. I'm not going to blame Mark Dice and Posobiec because they tried to make a joke and many people thought it was true, and now I'm seeing this pop up on Facebook where people literally believe that Ocasio-Cortez wants dudes to pee in jugs and use their urine for making tea or something. I mean, it's absurd, you shouldn't believe it in the first place, but there is a challenge in being a personality who doesn't normally make jokes, putting out a comment, putting out a document that some people might not understand, especially with Jack's tweet where he said, "Just reading this now, but wow, this Green New Deal is unreal." And they have the absurd comment right here. You're allowed to make a joke. I'm not necessarily going to blame them for doing it, but I think it's important to point out, I'm not surprised Cortez thinks it was a real attempt at derailing, and I'm also not surprised to see that people believe it's true. So we're in a tough situation. But ultimately, the point I want to make is, I'd like a Green New Deal. I like environmentalism, but why the strong and overt socialism?